All right, good morning and good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's scale call. It is September 12th, and today we have Kyle Kraft coming back in to talk to us today about sales psychology. Kyle, I just want to thank you so much for coming in to do our part two today. If anybody hasn't met Kyle yet, he is our on-team sales savage. I mentioned last time that he is like a superhero on our team for guiding us through this journey of sales. Um, a little bit of background on Kyle. Like I said, if you haven't met him yet or seen anything, he has been in sales for over 8 years now. You've been working in high ticket sales for, like I said, that 8+ years, and you've been doing in consulting. You help us out with our managing our team, understanding training process, and honestly, you've just been in the trenches for so long. And then before this, you owned, coached, and ran your own CrossFit gym. And I just want to give everybody like a little bit of background on the topic that we had last time. You came in and we're talking about that sales psychology. We went over a little bit like what's the difference between selling and sales, which I really appreciate because I love understanding the definitions of those words. And honestly, I've just been marinating on all of the things that you talked about because you were really emphasizing like listening to people and bringing in that human side of sales. And I've just realized that like the sales never ends. Like as I'm working and interacting with people, I'm like, wow, the sales never ends. Like it really benefits me to learn how to listen to people and try to understand their problems, because from there, it allows them to be empowered and advocate for themselves as they're moving through their client transformational journey. So Kyle, I don't want to talk too much. Thank you so much for coming in. Is there a way that you like people to ask questions throughout the presentation?
No, I mean, this is I'm fairly relaxed. So if you guys have any questions, what I want you guys to take away is how does this apply to what you sell? So I would love any questions, interruptions, drop them in the chat anytime. If you drop them in the chat, that way I can see them and kind of come back to you, and that way we don't lose them as well, because oftentimes we forget as soon as we try to remember when you get called on. So just drop it in the chat, and then I'll weave it in as we go along, guys. Thank you, Morgan. Guys, so I want to start with a couple of things. So if you weren't on the call, I think it was 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 at this point, I would highly check that out because it'll make this lesson make sense. Like Morgan said, we dove deep into sort of the psychology, and one of the most important things to take away from that is your way of being, right? One of the things I think is not talked about a lot in sales is how many of you guys have ever walked on a used car lot? Yeah, right. And there's a certain presence that some people have where you can feel that they want something from you, right? And so everything that I'm talking about really stems and starts with you. Are you showing up from a place of service? And I heard a story last week that I thought would be super relevant because, like I said last week, sales and selling, creating a process to consistently get the thing that you have that can improve somebody's life for the better in their hands, doing that consistently, you're trying to create a process that can predict human behavior. And so in my opinion, it's the most fascinating, wild, interesting thing on the planet, because it's like, how are you supposed to do that? There's 8 billion people. Like, how are you going to funnel those people similarly when they're all so unique? And so it can become it's very easy in sales to become disheartened, right? It's not working. Everyone's saying no. It's too expensive. Is it me? Am I good enough? Like, who's ever felt that way trying to get their services and products across the line? I know I have, right? And so what you have to understand is when it comes from that stance of servant leadership, the story I heard was there was a grandfather and a daughter standing on a beach, and there was a storm the night before that had washed up a ton of starfish. And the little girl runs up to one starfish and picks it up because they can only live in the water, and throws it back into the ocean. And she then walks down 10 yards or whatever, does it again. And she's on a beach where there's like thousands of starfish. And the grandfather goes, "What are you doing? Like it's not worth it. Like there's too many starfish. You know, you're too small to make a difference." And she turns to her grandfather and she says, "But it matters to that one." And I want you to really think about that in terms of a sales process, because we're not out here trying to convert everyone with a heartbeat. What we want is a process that allows for you to have the right people who truly value what you offer to become enrolled into the vision of what becomes possible for their lives and be committed to taking the actions that you lay out for them to be able to get the results that they need. And so as we go through this today, guys, I want you to kind of have that stance, because what we're going to cover today, I'm gonna go back up where we kind of left off and go through the high level conversation strategy. But if you don't have that stance, let's be honest, there's a lot of salespeople that use it for not good, right? I mean, there's scammers and fraudulent people out there in the world who are using these same probably tactics, but they're doing it to hurt people. And so this is very powerful stuff. When you come in from a stance of leadership, you own who you are, what you do, and know that it's absolutely of value for the right people. And when you take it from that stance, it puts you in a position of being a guide for the right people at the right time, where you can charge the right price that serves your business. So let's dive in, guys. Before I do start, just as a recap, yes, thank you, Morgan. I've been in high ticket sales, primarily selling coaching, SaaS, and service offers for 8 years. Prior to that, was in my own CrossFit gym selling mid-ticket type stuff, low-ticket type stuff for probably 10 years before that. So I've got I'm at 18 years. I hate how everyone just always rounds up to 20, so I'll say it. I'm at 18 years total of sales in kind of a lot of different coaching service offers. So if that is your area and you have any questions at all, please dump them in the chat. But for me, the reason that I came to sort of the conclusion of selling the way I do, which I do call conversations, right? Conversations came about because when I was running my CrossFit gym, I was getting people through the door and I just could not get them to sign up as members. And so I took my last $1,000 in my savings account at the time, I invested it in a sales training program, and I was off to the races. And what I learned in that program did not align with who I was. It did not align with how I felt about trying to help people as a coach. It felt like I was having to put on a sales hat and say all these words and like just be really fast talkative and high energy and like just try to do everything I could, spending 90 minutes, 2 hours with people trying to get them to buy a $150 gym membership. And it didn't feel right, because as soon as that sale was made, if I did make it, as soon as I hop on that coaching floor, I had to take off my sales hat as the same person and put on a coaching hat. And what I realized after a couple of years of doing that is, why am I not just becoming their coach at the very first point of connection? And it's through that lens that I'm looking. And what you'll hear in the conversation today, because we are going to go through a general script, is how you talk to people to get them to think, to get them to reflect on what it is that's causing the real problems in their life, and to be someone who can hold them accountable to looking at what the real problem is and making a clear, decisive commitment to make a change for the better, right? That is the stance that we're coming from. So for my clients, what we're going to go through here, we build out all the scripts, we build out all the unique angles, all the different language tracks that are appropriate based on the offer. We customize it for their audience, all those sorts of things. So today, again, guys, is going to be more general, high level. But again, if you have any questions how this relates to what you do, please drop in anytime. Any questions before we dive in, gang? No? All right. Let me share my screen here. Cool. All right, you guys can see my high-level conversation strategy. Awesome. All right, so last time, guys, we really went through a ton, going through selling psychology, like Morgan said. If you didn't see that, you can go check it out. And also, if you didn't get this document, I'd be happy to share it with any of you if you do want the notes. Today, I want to cover the high-level conversation strategy. And we went through just a little bit of this last time, so we're going to kind of do a little overlap, but then I'll complete going through the full thing. Before you start writing scripts, delivering steps in a process, or really looking into every detail, the first step for all of you guys is to understand why we're asking the questions we're asking, right? Now, I just went through that a little bit, because what you have to understand is the nature of conversations being fluid and varied from person to person. When you try to tack down every conversation in advance and like memorize a script or know exactly what you're going to say if they say this or that, it very much comes across as canned, right? People are smart enough to know the difference between having a cup of coffee and a natural, maybe deep conversation with a friend versus someone who's just trying to get them to say surface level things and then sell them something. It's extremely apparent, and I'm sure all of you guys have felt that before. And so again, capturing a process around human behavior, how you can move and influence people, is a lot like trying to create a process for sailing. Yes, you need to understand all the different mechanisms. How do I use my compass? How do I adjust my sails? What do I do in certain situations where I can't see the stars or there's a storm, right? But when you understand what the function is of every part of that sailboat, you can adjust your sails to no matter what the circumstances are. And it's the exact same in sales. You want to be able to understand what are the tools and when are they appropriately used, so that when you encounter certain situations, you have nothing to fear but just overcoming based on the skill set you have. And so to start, to have this build some context, right? What I always recommend is a two-call process. Now, this is primarily for people who sell online, right? The very the most prevalent way of selling right now, like what we do here at CEO Finance Academy, is we have some kind of ad that attracts our ideal client. We nurture them with content relevant to the symptoms that they're going through, helping them understand what the real problem is of those symptoms, and then fleshing out sort of general solutions to those problems. That's what builds trust, is when people feel like that you understand specifically what their problems are and can articulate the root problem of that better than them. And so that's how we drive people into our funnel. Now, we kind of have a split system. We do some people on a short call and then a long call. Other people go straight to a long call, but we have a little bit more of an advanced filtering system for that. For you guys today, just understand that the process that I'm going to be going through is a two-call. The reason I recommend this so much is because when you're selling high ticket, the most important thing is trust, right? And again, trust is built when they believe that you understand their problems better than they do, okay? However, if people have not had enough time to sort of process that, marinate on it, and look at it through their own lens of like, is this real? Then that trust can evaporate quickly, right? And so the two-call process, number one, it builds a strong relationship because there's more connection points. Number two, it gives your potential clients appropriate time to convince themselves that you're the answer to their problem by consuming content and processing the conversations you're having. And from my data, it just shows that there's higher conversions if you're selling something for over 2K. And then beyond that, I think the most practical one is if you're running a two-call process, it allows you to know on that first 15-minute call if someone is actually a viable candidate to work with you, rather than having to spend 45 to 60 minutes to get to the end of a call just to realize they can't afford it or it's not a good fit in some way, shape, or form. Okay, so that's what we do. The stages that we take people through, and I do call them stages of commitment, are I'm going to run through kind of the structure, and then we're going to kind of get into the details and the questions of it. Okay. So the first thing we always want to do with somebody is we want to link up. I equate this to like if you have a computer and you don't connect it to the modem, you're not downloading anything off the internet, right? There's no communication back and forth between between you and that person. So the first part is to really understand why are they here, right? And what is it that brought them to the call? That's really linking up with people. The second piece is then what are they currently doing about what they said in that link up, right? When they say why they're here, now we want to move the conversation towards today. Like, what are you actually doing today about that thing you said you wanted, right? And we start to build from there towards the problem. And so the third step, the most critical and what is often most glossed over by amateur salespeople because it's challenging to ask hard questions, is we now need to uncover the problem, right? Now, a problem has two components to it. A problem is going to have a tangible need, right? So for some of you guys getting into this program, you might have had a tangible need for a system that allowed you to clearly see the data in your business and be able to interpret those numbers in a way that allowed you to make good decisions, right? And so when you get into uncover the problem, what we want to figure out is the opposite of that, right? So if you're doing, what are you doing today to try to get information on your business to make good decisions? Oh, and I guess, do you like the results you're getting from that? No. Can you tell me why not? Right. And so, and I'll go through the questions again, but this is where we truly understand what's really happening for them. How is it affecting their business? And how is it affecting them? Because ultimately, people are the ones that buy, not a business or the problem itself. Okay. From there, once we are clear on the problem and it's been labeled, then we want to move into building a solution, right? This is where we start to understand what is the actual tangible needs this person has to be able to solve it in their own mind, okay? pretty critical because those are the things that then we can weave in to when we offer them to show them how what they wanted is fulfilled by what we do. Okay. From there, we kind of want to sweep the legs, kind of Cobra Kai, where we understand future impact, meaning what happens if you don't, right? If you don't make a change from here and you keep sort of trying to make decisions with incomplete data, what do you think is going to happen to the business in 6 or 12 months? And then from there, we recap the entire call. We bridge into making our offer, which is really the plan of action for them. And then we talk about their commitment. Okay. So that's the overall structure. Any questions so far, guys? Is this resonating with you? How it's moving people through their own story to be able to make a change for the better? Just to get some feedback.
Kyle, I've got a question
Yeah, hit me.
For those owners who are in here in a face-to-face brick and mortar. We have a lot of healthcare business owners on here, I know right now. How did this strategy or this flow apply in your gym, for example? Or how might this apply to someone who's selling physical therapy services, or maybe they're selling plumbing services, right? And it's like, hey, I don't have a chance, I don't have the high ticket sale kind of Zoom call, like maybe I'm hitting the phones or someone's coming in face to face. How does this process adapt into a strategy or a scenario like that?
Yeah, so it applies anytime someone has to make a change. So if you guys think about it, whatever you're selling is offering someone to change course, right? So let's say I sell, let me use a real life example. Okay, so I was upstairs in the bathroom about a month or so ago, and I turned the water faucet on, and I heard a clunk, and then the water started to trickle out, right? And I was like, what the heck is this? And I'm not a plumber. I can fake it, but I don't want to screw up anything. So we call the plumber over, right? Think about this, guys, like through the lens of you want to be an authority, an expert, and also a trusted advisor. Okay, that third piece is the most critical. And so when the guy showed up, the first thing he did, he goes, "Okay, can you show me the sink?" That's the current approach, right? What is the sink currently doing? Okay, now let me ask, like, what happened? Like, how do you usually use the sink? Oh, we turn the water on, we turn the water off. And I know this is a base example, guys, but you'll see how it applies to everything. Oh, okay. So when you turn the water on, what happened? Well, the water, it made a clunk and then it trickled out. Okay, I guess are you happy with the water flow? Because I don't want to assume. No, like we need it a lot because we got to wash your face, we got kids, we got to brush teeth, all that. Okay. And so I guess like you not having this water, is that going to have an impact in some way on you? Well, yeah, if we can't do this, then they're all cramming into my bathroom. Okay, got it. Like it's it seems like a silly example, but when you understand it, it's the way people tell themselves stories. Okay. All humans are designed to tell themselves a story about things. We are meaning making machines. And what the big problem is, oftentimes it just sits inside of people. And so as you take someone through this process, it can be in person, it can be over the phone, it can be on Zoom, you're essentially having them tell themselves why they need to change. Is that making sense so far, Alex? Is that answering your question?
Yeah. And I've got two scenarios that I want to run by you, talk them out loud, and have you sort of say like, hey, this is when they were doing this piece, would that be cool for just a minute to go in almost a like, because as a buyer, I bought a couple big ticket things in the last couple of years, one last week, yep, that were in a very different format that someone might say, well, I'm not sure if this applies to my industry. It's like, but it does. And let's look at how. Would you be cool taking a minute,
yeah,
sitting in this with the stages of commitment? Okay.
So whatever you guys feel valuable. Absolutely.
So I want to take it down two roads, one of them in a service-based business and one of them in a construction-based business. Because we've talked through, we've talked through sort of virtual services, agency, coaching stuff. We've talked through some brick and mortar. Now I want to talk through some service-based and construction because I know we have those too. So we're getting our front yard done right now. Literally, he's out there right this minute. And yep, I called up 3 people. And this is how I always buy stuff. I talk to multiple people. I get bids. I see what the process is like. I see what they're like, and then I make my decision. So I would love if I can talk you through like, hey, here's what they did. And then if you can pull out like, here's where this is applying. Here's what this looks like, right? From your framework. So I texted 3 people. 2 of them got back to me. 1 didn't, right? Just like basic, like, do you even respond? 2 of them came out to look at my yard and give bids. The one So, and you can imagine which one bought here. I want you guys to listen and think through this, and then we can apply this to the sales framework. One of them came out, and it was the bidder. It was the guy who was the bidder. And he came out and he said, what is it that you're wanting? Okay, yeah, I got it. I'll take some measurements and we'll get you a bid tomorrow. And it was really, he was probably there for 5 minutes, and he took some measurements and he got me the bid tomorrow. The other guy came out and he said, hey, let's talk through what you're wanting. So there's a couple options that we could do here. We could go with this, or we could go with this. Let's look around here. Okay, so you're going to come up with this problem. How do you want to solve that one? Okay, all right, yeah. Interesting. And sort of what's the timeline that you guys are hoping for here, right? He walked through all those things, and then he gave his bid, admittedly, a few days after the other person did. But it was such a clear sale for me of like, oh, this guy actually listens to what I want. He doesn't just, it's not just about, let me assess and give you a bid. It's not like, I think sometimes we feel like, oh, let me just get through the problem, give you the answer and go. This other guy, the one that we went with and who's working on the yard right now, actually listened to what we wanted. He gave suggestions for things. He said, well, are you wanting it to, you're saying that you want this, but do you want this outcome or this outcome? Okay, interesting. Because if we do bark, it's going to look different than if we do rocks versus rubber mulch there. It's going to look like X, Y, or Z. Like, which of those, I guess, do you care about? Which one's the bigger impact? Okay, cool. I'll put that into my bid. It was just such a different experience having someone go like, all right, I'll take some measurements and get right back to you versus I'm going to go methodically, step by step through what you want and tell you that I care about what you want. And that at the end of the day was what sold me. It was like, oh, you listen to what I want. I know what it's going to be like working with you. And I think that was the biggest thing as a buyer is I know what it's going to be like working with you based on your sales process, because I'm actually making more of a decision on that than I am your offer and deliverable.
Exactly right. So if you guys listen to that anecdote, which of those was a trusted advisor? So the key, guys, and the reason I say a great sales structure encompasses a story arc, but it's a story arc based on somebody's actual life, right? The only thing that defines a story, sometimes people tell anecdotes like what you just did, right? And they think that's a story. That's not a story. A story is defined by someone having a transformation or a realization, and it's usually about 5 seconds long, right? So in that story, right, Alex is realizing that rather than work with someone who's transactional and is just going to give him a price on something, he realized that he would be better served by somebody who's asking him what he wants, making the real options available, and then building him something around his needs and wants and desires, right? That's kind of the outcome of your story there. So when you are selling anything, whether it's landscaping, whether it's shoes, whether it's a car, whether it's construction, the key is you put the onus, the responsibility on the prospect, right? Whereas a lot of times, old way of selling is you are trying to just push them into something. Hey, here's the price. You want it, right? Like, can you imagine if I was trying to sell fitness by saying, you're fat, you need this? Like that is the actual old way of selling. You guys get that, right? Like there were gyms that would do that. Instead of, hey, let's talk about what's going on. So you mentioned that you've only been wearing sweatpants for the last 3 years and all the mirrors in your house are from the neck up. Tell me about that. Do you guys see how that's completely different, right? And from there, it's like, well, I guess, do you like just wearing sweatpants and not being able to look at yourself in the mirror? No. I guess, well, what don't you like about that? Well, I know I'm a great person. I know I have a lot to offer, but when I look in the mirror, it doesn't reflect who I actually am. Okay. And so I guess, is that having an impact on you personally? Oh my God, I can't even tell my husband about this, right? Like that's where people need to go to understand why they need to change, okay? So am I answering your question, Alex, or am I just riffing? Is that helping? Okay.
No, you're great. I just want to see, hey, how does this apply in these different situations? And I love what you said. It's like, which person was the trusted advisor? It's like, this is a framework for how we show up as a trusted advisor versus just someone who's trying to sell something.
Yeah, exactly right. And so we covered that in that first call. Let's bring it back right here, right? Again, when you get in front of a potential client, what do you want to accomplish? What broke business owners want is to make a sale. What an outstanding entrepreneur wants is to be respected, to be trusted, to gain referrals, to be more valuable than a competitor who undercuts on pricing, to be perceived as an expert, to be influential, to build loyalty, and to create urgency to buy now. That is what the outcomes are when you take this approach. Okay. Does anyone have any questions on this, or like how it applies to maybe what you guys sell? Because I'm happy to make it make more sense if you guys need. No? Not scary, I promise. Okay, cool. All right, so let's dive back in then to the actual conversation, if that's okay, Alex, or feel free to interrupt again. So from the first stage, right? The first thing we want to get to understand is, why are they on the call? A lot of people they still do this, right? How many of you guys have hopped on a sales call maybe, and the first thing they ask you is where you're located and what the weather's like? And immediately you know you're in a sales process, don't you? Okay. What does an expert do? Let's all just imagine we have a doctor appointment. Okay. The doctor walks in the room. Hey, so you're here because your tonsils hurt. Is that right? Yes. Okay. And then they start an assessment. There's no fluff. There's no beating around the bush. There's no, hey, like, are your kids back in school right now? Like, no, let's get to the business. No fluff. Okay. From there, now we want to start to understand, where are they actually at? So we dive into the current situation. Okay. Why are they there? All right. What brought them there? And then one thing I do want to mention is tactful interruptions. Okay. So like Alex is a great example of this, because when Alex gets a thought, it's like he can't speak fast enough to get all his thoughts out. And I love that about Alex. But if I'm trying to sell Alex, that could be a nightmare, because it doesn't serve somebody. Like, you got to understand, when you ask someone a question, more times often than not, people don't want to look unintelligent. And so they will keep going, even if they're going off towards Pluto. Okay. And so tactful interruptions, and again, this is going to lead into, when you know why you're asking the questions you're asking, are going to give you an opportunity to really get them back on course. It's like, hey, I can totally appreciate how like you like the bark on your trees and you want it to match kind of the landscaping. Now back to this over here, like, do you actually feel like this is, do you want this to be like a party area where you entertain guests, or is this just more for like the kids to play, right? And you can bring them right back. So that's tactful interruptions. I think I didn't scroll down. Oh, there it is. Okay, perfect. So that's where we go there. Now, once we've understood why they're here, where they're at right now in their current situation, now we start to uncover the problem. Okay. And this graphic here, guys, is if you take anything away from this sales training, it's if you are the cause that moves somebody from understanding the symptoms that they're experiencing of their problem into the real problem, that's when you become their trusted advisor. Okay. So I'm guessing, Alex, at some point, you were looking through the lens of your yard as, I just want landscaping, right? Or something surface level, like I just want this or that, right? And when that trusted advisor showed up, they started asking you questions that brought into your awareness things you hadn't even considered. Is that correct, or am I false? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, ooh, I didn't know I should be thinking about that. That's a good question. That's a good question is really where the sale was made for me. It's like, I didn't think about that. You're good.
Yeah, exactly right. Because you're people don't show up to sales appointments to buy things. They show up to have those realizations like they do at the end of a story. You guys get that? The insights that you can provide are what they actually want. And when they feel that they're true and you understand their problem better than they do and can articulate it back to them, not only do they trust you, but they automatically assume you have a solution. All right. So where does this show up? Well, we first have to understand the real problem. Now, a simple way of saying this could be something like, okay, Alex, so I guess show me which part of the yard it is. Okay, it's over here, right? And I guess, how have you been using what are you doing with the yard today? Like, what's going on? Oh, I just mow it and the kids don't play because there's like a wasp nest over there. Okay, got it. I guess, are you satisfied with like how the yard is serving you in terms of your family's lifestyle? Well, yeah, I mean, it's kind of nice. Okay, what do you like about it? Oh, well, I like the grass. I like how it's green. I like that tree. I like that bush. Okay, got it. I guess, what would you change if you could? Oh, so Alex, give me the real answer. What would you change if you could?
Well, I would have grass instead of dirt, for one.
But why grass?
That'll be a big upgrade.
Dirt seems so much easier. You don't have to mow it. Why grass?
Because then my kids don't track dirt into the house every time they go out to play.
Okay. I guess.
Also, dirt looks like crap, man. I could spray paint it green though. That might be a quick fix.
It sounds like aesthetics is important to you then.
Yeah.
Okay. And I guess kids tracking dirt into the house, is that having an impact on you and your wife personally?
My wife personally, yes. And then and then me
What way?
secondarily. Absolutely.
In what way?
I mean, every time the kids go out to play, we have to beg them to take off shoes and then they don't. And then we need to mop the floor
Oh, they
over and
don't.
over. And then the
How long
carpet looks
has that-
like crap.
How long has that been going on?
As long as we've been here, year and a half.
Okay. So I guess just to understand kind of your thinking behind it, why would you possibly be looking at getting grass now rather than just keep kind of mopping up after them? Because it seems like you've been able to do that for a few years.
Yeah. Because we can afford it now.
Right. But I guess like money kind of comes and goes. I guess like,
Oh,
you
my
know,
money doesn't come and go. I tell it exactly what to do.
yeah, I mean, it can come and go though, right? Like there's always bills that say your food
Yeah.
can go out the door for that reason.
I just had to throw.
So I guess besides having the money, I guess what makes this really important for you now rather than just to keep, mopping?
Well, I mean, it's the next thing on our list. I come up with, if you really want to know, I come up with a list of here's the next upgrade to the house that we're going to do. And this is the next one in order. So maybe that's a superficial answer, but it's the truth.
Yeah. When you made that list, I guess what was the purpose for you?
Ooh, my kids really love playing outside and we want to encourage them to be outside, and being on the grass is the easiest way to do that. And so they are stealing my neighbor's grass instead right now. And I don't want them trampling their grass. They can trample mine instead.
So it sounds like you're committed to being a father who provides the spaces kids need to play.
Oh,
That's
give me
right.
that grass, baby.
Right. So like is that real? Like,
That's
do you
so
have
funny.
this?
Yeah.
Is that the real purpose? This is what I mean by leadership through listening. I'm articulating back in ways he's not even seeing who he is because he's so close to it. That's what builds the trust, right? And so now I know his identity that he wants to live up to that he's currently not as the father and leader of his family. You guys see that? This is how it applies to everything. It could be a pair of freaking shoes, you guys, right? But why these shoes? Why is that so important to you? Like you don't have to. You can go get the $2.99 kicks down at the sale lot. You know what I mean? Like it applies to everything. We need to, when I say you need to understand the reason why you're asking the questions, it's understanding their why behind the answers, okay? And not just taking whatever they tell you at first glance, but digging for the real reasons why. And if you can do that in a way that's respectful and builds them up as the person that in their mind they want to be, that they have like some noble commitment to being a version of themselves that they're not yet, when you can draw that out, they instantly want to follow in your leadership because they're becoming a better person, right? Even when it's just talking about landscaping the backyard, no problem. So from there, where we would go is now we would start to introduce so essentially, if you think about it through this lens, right? We've connected with them. We've now evoked from them what the problem is, what that problem is doing emotionally to them, and the purpose behind it, okay? So it's really important because now they've told themselves things that can actually take that problem and mobilize it into change. And so when we mobilize it into change, now we want to start to tack down specific things that they see as what they actually need. So this is like where you're talking about the actual filler, right? So it's like when we move into build the solution, which is the next phase, it's like, well, what do you actually feel would be helpful in a backyard? Like when you look out, if you shut your eyes and imagine the most perfect ideal landscape, what do you see, Alex? Right? Oh, I see lush grass. I see wood chips. I see my kids' play center, stuff like that. It's like, okay. And I guess, why are those things important to you now though? Right? We need to, when you ask those questions, that's what builds their urgency. Okay.
Hey, Kyle.
Yeah.
Can I interrupt really quick?
Please,
So
thank you.
how, hi, with clients that call and are just like seeking information about cost and money, and they seem to get annoyed about, we're trying to educate them. We're trying to, build that relationship with them and nurture them. But how do you handle that when clients are just like digging for money answers?
Yeah. So, what do you sell?
Canine physical therapy.
Oh, beautiful. Okay. And so let's do this. You want to role play?
Sure.
Okay, so you be that person, and
Okay.
I'll be the guy selling canine physical therapy.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So ring, ring, ring. Hello.
Hi. Hi. I'm looking to get my dog some help. They seem to be limping, and I just want to know like what you guys charge for what you do.
Oh, yeah. That's not a problem. I guess I'm Kyle, by the way. What was your name? Just to understand.
My name's Kelsey.
Hey, Kelsey. Nice to connect with you. How you doing today?
I'm good. I've kind of done my Google research, and I'm just kind of really looking for price information, and I've called a bunch of places, and I kind of get the gist, but I just want to know what you guys charge.
Yeah, that's not a problem. Now, I understand you've done your research. I guess there isn't like one thing that we do or like a product with a price. We actually have several different options because, as I'm sure you know, every dog has sort of different needs and ability levels. And so we sort of customize everything to the actual canine needs rather than just charging a bland price. Does that make sense? And so I
Yeah.
guess you'd be open to me learning a little bit more about your situation so I can actually know what to show you that might be relevant. Would that help you?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of am on a time limit. Like I'm at work right now too. So I just really want to know what you guys are charging.
Yeah, and I apologize. I guess I wouldn't even know what to show you yet because again, I don't know exactly the needs, and you
Yeah.
don't have to answer them. But if we won't take too long, maybe 5 minutes, and I can just get you the exact details you're looking for. Would that be appropriate?
Yeah. So my dog's been limping. They're running around the dog park, and I think they might have
Yeah.
stepped in a hole and just started limping on their back leg.
Okay. So limping on the back leg. So I guess do you know what you're looking for specifically?
For him not to limp and not to be in pain.
Okay, got it. And I guess right now, how are you sort of managing the limping, or like what are you actually doing about possibly helping him heal?
Just not taking him to the dog park, not letting him do stuff, just kind of keeping him down quiet.
Or you're not? Okay. And I guess do you like the results you're getting with that approach? Like, is he improving? Is he the same? Is he worse?
No, he's still limping, so that's why I want to do something about it and figure out what to do.
Okay, got it. And I guess when was that he actually stepped into the hole and started limping?
Maybe like a month ago.
Pause. So now I got you, right? Like
Mhm.
I don't advance. I play a game with myself, red light, green light. Okay. So you asked me this thing. I said the same thing back to you twice in a different way.
Yeah.
I wouldn't like Kelsey, I'd love to. I wouldn't even know what to show you at this point because I know
Right.
nothing about your situation.
Yeah.
But you're calling me for help as an expert and an advisor on canine physical therapy, but you aren't allowing me to take you through the process that actually fulfills on what we do for our clients. What am I
Mhm.
supposed to do?
Right.
Like, not did it feel respectful, or did it feel like I'm trying to smash you down the pipeline?
No, very respectful.
Okay. Does that help?
Yeah, it does. Alex's comment, we've definitely seen that 1,000 times. It's just like your information is so helpful. So I just wanted to see how that would kind of play out with those type of clientele that just are talking about money, which is not what we do, when we talk to them.
So really good. I'm super happy you brought that up because it just triggered me to remember something else. So guys, remember I started with the 2-call process, right? So you have a first call and a second call. So when you get to this stage, typically on the first call is like 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes tops, right, Morgan? And so so all we're doing is we want to evoke the problem, evoke the impact of that problem, and then we can tease out some of the solutions, right? So let's say we get to the end of the next few questions with you, Kelsey, and it's like, okay, this has been going on for 3 months. My dog's still limping. We're just not letting him do anything, right? And from there, it's like, okay, well, what do you feel would actually help your dog? Like, and I know you don't know maybe much about PT, but you did say you did research. Like, is there anything that comes to mind that you feel would be more helpful for support to actually get your dog healthy quicker? Right. And I'm building out some of those things. Oh, well, probably just personal care, probably something like 3-4 days a week, something like that. Okay, got it. So I guess, can I make a suggestion? And at this point, you suggest general solutions. You don't give them your offer, your product, your price. You say, well, based on what you have mentioned in this conversation, your dog's been going for 3 months. He's been limping. And at this rate, you just haven't even let him be active. What we've seen is that dogs that aren't able to be active actually start to become aggressive. And so what I would recommend for someone in your particular situation is to, yes, have actually a 5-day-a-week program that takes them through guided activity while also rehabbing the leg. So by the end of the program, they're both docile and they're mobile, which will allow them to get back to being regular active dogs again in the next 6 weeks. Do you see how that would help? Yeah. So if you're open to it, what we can do, Kelsey, is we can just hop on a longer call and I can outline for you the exact steps of how we do it, what we do, and how we've helped other canines get back and running again. Would that be helpful? Yes. Then we book the longer call, right? I didn't go into pricing details, all the things, and get a commitment. That first call is to both educate them on your expertise and your authority, help them feel understood and that you know their real problem, the impact it's having, and then we lay out those general solutions. It's really powerful. I mean, Alex, we worked on this for our own sort of front side, and the problem is if you jump right to what you do, there's no context for it to land on. So by building out the context of what general solutions can solve the problem, when you come back and take them through the full call later, and then you give them an offer that fulfills on those general solutions, they're like, this is exactly what I need, right? So that's what we do there. But at this stage, guys, the first call would essentially end. We would book the second call. The second call, we start at the top again. We run through problem. We run through the impact of that. Then we build out the solution. But then we get into the granddaddy future impact. Future impact. Think about this emotionally, okay? As someone's telling their story, first they come in, hey, we're here, so it's kind of neutral. Then we go into what the problem is, and they start to feel down, right? We go all the way down to how it's impacting them emotionally, which is like a low point. And then we start bringing them back up. Well, what would you need to actually fix this? Oh, I would need this, that, and the other. And from there, what would become possible if you did that? Oh, my dog could live a happy life the rest of his life. You'd be, jumping and his tongue would be wagging. Awesome. And so now we're at the highest point of the call emotionally. You guys with me on this so far? So what we want to do at this stage, have you guys ever heard the phrase gap selling? You guys ever heard that phrase? Okay. So gap selling, guys, is essentially understanding the current place someone is and the desired state that they have. And the wider that gap is, both tangibly and emotionally, the higher price you can justify. Okay, does that make sense? So if I'll go back to fitness because it's so simple for me. If I'm 400 pounds and I want to be 130 pounds, right? And the 400 pounds is causing me hypertension, I'm on medication, I'm pre-diabetic, I'm at risk of losing my feet, right? And I want to be 130 pounds healthy, the best shape of my life, and feel like I can take my shirt off at the beach and everyone else looks, that's a massive gap. Are you guys seeing that? And for that, you can charge 3, 5, 10. I've seen fitness offers at 20K, right? But they have to fulfill on the solution. And so when they're at that high point of what becomes possible if they have the thing that will solve the problem, then we want to lock in the gap by asking a future impact question. And a future impact question goes, okay, well, let me ask you, Kelsey, let's say you don't do anything about this and Fluffy keeps running with the limp for the next 3, 6, 12 months, and his quality of life deteriorates even further. Like, what happens then? How do you see that reality playing out? It's like, I'd feel like a terrible dog owner. It would be horrible for him. It's not good at all, right? That establishes the gap between what becomes possible and what happens if they do nothing. And from there, we start to insert our offer, because the offer is the bridge between the two. Does that visual make sense? I know I'm using my hands a lot of gesticulation going on over here, but I hope that makes sense. Okay, so the future impact, guys, is really explaining the outcome back to you, rather telling themselves what happens if the problem isn't fixed in a certain time frame. So if someone says, we'll use fitness, it's like, okay, well, let me ask, John, like if you don't do anything about this and you're 400 pounds now, and God forbid 3, 6, 12 months from now, you still haven't done anything about this, like, where do you see yourself at that point? Like, what happens then? Oh my God, I'm going to lose my feet. I'm going to probably have to have a triple bypass. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Okay. And now what we want to do is have them defend that. This is where urgency comes from. Urgency does not come from, we only have 5 spots available or a limited time, right? Urgency comes, like everything we're talking about, problem drives process. And when they realize the magnitude of the problem, if they do nothing, that's what creates an urgency for them internally. And so it's like, well, what do you mean you're going to lose your feet? What do you mean by that? Well, I'd for sure be diabetic in 3 months. I'm already pre-diabetic and super close. Okay. And now we want to start to kind of put their commitment button in their hand, is how we say it, right? I guess, are you willing to settle for that? Well, no. Well, why not though? Well, because I can do something about it. I can start to work out. I can eat healthier. Okay. Can I ask, whose choice is it if you settle? And now we've brought up responsibility, right? And so this whole process, again, the reason I asked Kelsey if it felt respectful is because everything needs to be what she desires, what she wants. At the end of the day, I can't make anyone do anything. And so my job is to have them express yes to me, but more importantly, to who? Themselves. Are they responsible enough to commit to solving the problem? And only at that point do I want to present an offer, because before they take responsibility for the problem, it's just going to be another problem on their plate, because now they got to spend money, time, and energy when they're not committed. Okay. And so from there, we can start to mobilize that commitment into action. All right. So right now it is important for you to actually start getting the weight off, so you can feel like 2 years, 3 years from now, you can be down to 130. But more important than that, 6 months from now, know you're going to be able to keep your feet and actually be on the best glide path to being your best in the next few years. Is that right? Yes. Okay. And you can continue to have them to defend things. But really, at the end of the day, we just want to ask the final question before our presentation. So is now a time to really draw a line in the sand and go commit to getting the weight off, or how do you feel? Oh, yeah, absolutely. Okay. Time to make a change then, possibly. Yes. Now they're primed by having completed that story arc for themselves, where it's like they're at a point of contention. They can go this way as a trajectory, or they can go this way. And we've gotten them clear on why they should put the effort, energy, time, and money into doing what's best for them, because we've explored all the different angles. Cool. From there, we go into a recap. So I don't see anyone else do this, and it's so helpful for me, and I've done it for years, but I do a recap. So I do like the whole call recap in one sentence. I say, okay, so here's what I've gathered so far, because I know you're absolutely committed to getting the weight off, and you've been trying for the last 3 years, but you fall off because you don't have the right support and you don't have a program that actually works for you. And so you're right now you're feeling a little bit defeated, but you saw our ad and you knew that if you could just get the right support and the one-on-one hand-holding step-by-step through the process, you'd be able to break it down into manageable pieces and take action every day on it. And from there, you can start to see 1 pound a week come off. And 3 years from now, you're actually going to be able to be under 200 pounds and never having to worry about diabetes again. But more importantly, you'll be around to play with your grandchildren. Did I get that right, or did I miss anything? And they're going to be like, you nailed it. That's where trust is highest. So what do we do at that point? Now we offer to give them a solution. Okay, well, if it's appropriate, what I can do at this stage is just show you what we do and how we solve those problems. Would that be okay? Yes. And now we take them through an offer. Okay, so that's the full structure. I don't think we have time to go through a full presentation, but what I will tell you guys is I have a 72-minute training. It's a masterclass on presenting your offer to obliterate objections before they come up. It works on offers 3, 5, 10, 20, and 50K. If you guys want it, happy to send it over free of charge. Also have all of my slides, like word for word, how I present. So if that's something that you guys want to see in detail, just shoot me a message or talk to Morgan, and she can, I can get it to her and she can get it to you. Guys, does this help you as you think about sales? And is it different than maybe what you've heard in the past? I'd love any feedback, good, bad, or indifferent. Cool. Well, you guys don't want this. Awesome. Let me grab the training for you real quick. I'll just drop it in the chat. Do you guys have any questions for me?
Can I ask another question?
Absolutely.
So with your 2-call kind of like first step process, how, I know it's like the main teasing out who's serious and who's not, so you're not wasting your time and resources, but what percentage, I'd say, of people will actually do the second call?
So well, the goal is, like on a first call, essentially the goal is anyone who books that second call, it should be 100% because of the way that the script is structured, right? Because what I do at the end of that solutions phase, so just pretend I just kind of gave you a general solution, right? And now I've lost which window you guys are on, so I'm sorry. Give me a second. I'm trying to find you. Here you are. Okay. So let me just dump this in the chat and then I can talk. There is the link to my how to present coaching offers 3 to 20K that obliterate objections, and all my slides and the full training if you guys want to see it. Once you outline for someone the general solutions, that in essence from their side is that realization, right? It's the end of the story where they go, oh, that's what I don't have, right? Because when someone comes into a sales call, the most important thing on the front side is doubt. Doubt meaning they feel like they don't have what they need, or what they have isn't good, okay? And so when you lay out those solutions, we want them to feel like, oh my God, that makes total sense why I haven't gotten the result yet, okay? And from there, we offer the next call. Just like I did with you, it's, well, okay, I guess if you're willing and wanting, what we can do is we could just put a deeper conversation on the calendar over the next few days where I can show you exactly what we do, how we do it, and how we help all of our other clients achieve results, just like you're looking to do. Is that something you'd be willing and wanting to put on the calendar over the next few days, or how do you feel? So again, the process is built around them self-advancing. So if they pick you up on that, that's them asking to be on your calendar. Right? So it should be 100%. Now, logistically, of course, stuff comes up. They don't always show something comes up, but the idea is it should be much higher than like a one call show up rate. It should be like 70, 80%.
Do you ever get people that like you're on that, intro call say, well, can we just talk now? Like I have time now. And then you just go right into it, or you make them actually book a second call?
Yeah, I always, think about it like this. Like if you walked into a doctor's office and you have some horrible disease, God forbid, and they're like, which would make you feel better, right? One of them is like, hey, come in anytime, sign up, we'll get to you, and maybe we'll get to the whole appointment and assessment, maybe not. Just kind of stick around and we'll see what comes up. The other one's like, here's the clear process for us to actually help you. The first step is we have to have a connection call. This is where we can really understand a little bit more about your needs and understand if what we do might actually work for you. And from there can present you with some trainings and resources that sort of give you a better, deeper education as to what might actually help. And from there, we can have a longer call if it's appropriate. Do you see how that's like different, right? Like one person has certainty in a process they've done again and again and again because they've helped one person solve one specific problem. The other one's like loosey-goosey, right? Which one of those gives you more certainty is the question.
The second one.
Exactly right. So if someone comes on, the language is fairly simple. It's like, well, I do apologize. I do have appointments directly after this. But what I'm happy to do is just find a time where we can connect, where we can both be present and focus. And that way we're sure not to miss anything because you're too important. Right?
Okay.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Stacy, hi, nice to meet you.
Hey, how are you?
Great.
So I have a question also. So I'm a physical therapist too, so it's a service-based business as well. And so with my current sales process, I do the 15-minute call, but then that typically leads into their initial assessment. And so then a lot of this conversation that you're talking about actually takes place in that in-person session.
Yeah.
Which ends up being an hour. And so I'm curious if you would still recommend actually doing that call rather than leading right into that in-person one, or if it's fine to do it that way, but just kind of incorporate more of the scripting that you talked about here.
So I'm sorry, I'm not sure if I'm clear on the question. Are you asking if the 15-minute is still a good idea, or if you should just do one call? Or like one appointment?
So I definitely would still do the 15-minute because that helps me to weed out people and vet them and figure out, if they're actually a good client or not.
Okay.
But I have not done the second call. It always just, if they seem like they're a good fit, then I would invite them to schedule for the assessment that's in person.
Mm-hmm.
And so then that we're kind of going through the evaluation and all that stuff, and then trying to figure out if they're an appropriate fit at that point. So my question is just, is it fine to do that and just maybe incorporate some of the things that you're talking about here in the script, or would you still recommend that second phone call first?
Yeah, because you can still fall into the trap of transactional, right? So like you are the expert, you are taking them through a physical therapy assessment in that second appointment, right? One of the things, the advantage would be they might see you as an expert, but a trusted advisor is someone that like wraps in the humanity of things and like applies it to someone's particular situation, right? So getting them to understand why they want this fixed now and how them not fixing it is going to impact them into the future is much more powerful than you just saying, I'm touching here, 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 here. Okay, here's what we got to do, and it's this much money, right? That's transactional. Transformational is when they realize the scope and breadth of the problem, how like it's a spider web that touches their life and their relationships and their health and their ability to generate wealth, right? All of those things are being impacted. And if they could fix this one thing that you've now assessed is the root problem, then what becomes possible for them? And I was working with a client who it was PT, but they did like some other services as well. And like they were charging like transactional prices, right? Like $50 an hour, $100 for a session, something like that. But the value in like yours type of business is you can now give people real solutions versus band-aids. I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. I lift heavy weights consistently. I usually bang myself up pretty good. So I have a consistent massage therapist and I have a PT who does out-of-pocket cash. So I'll go see her. Like I tweaked my back this morning, deadlifting, I'll make an appointment, right? Now she's just taking $150 for me for that session. But if she were to come to me and take me through an hour, like I'm literally like, I wish she would do this, because if she took me through an assessment and she was like, here's the deal. The real reason you're in here every other month, Kyle, is because of these issues. Like you're blocked here, this is off, your ankle mobility sucks, your hips are jacked up, you have a sports hernia, like we've got to fix all this. Otherwise, you're just going to keep coming in here. And if she were to present me like a 3 or 6 month plan at a high ticket price, right? So rather than me paying $150 a session, it's, well, we're going to charge you $6K, but over the next 6 months, I'm going to meet with you twice a month and I'm going to give you at home work and you're going to be able to actually fix this forever. I would be much more inclined to do that as an athlete, because now it's like, great, let's just solve this thing versus me having to ping pong back here every time. And that's the big difference with this sort of structure, is it allows for you to solve the problem forever versus putting a Band-Aid on it. It's like, no, you actually need deep, deep surgery, not just, the Band-Aid. So that's what I would say might be possible for something like what you do. I don't know the specifics, of course, but that's the value of having this. It sounds like you're following the right structure. Does that help?
Yeah, and that's actually the way that I do things is
Sure.
I'm talking about all of those things. We are trying to look at, solving this problem for good. How do we give them those tools and all of that stuff? So it is very holistic in that regard. And it's, maybe not quite as high ticket as that, but I don't know, that is my approach and the way that I talk to them in that session. So I guess knowing that, would you say that that is still okay to do it that way, or you still would also kind of put in that call, like there would be value of doing that?
So the call is just the medium. Like you can have the in-person appointment and use a very similar script. And when it comes time to uncovering the problem, that's essentially where like you would be doing your actual assessment work, right? Well, let's test this. Let's test this. Let's test this. You can be asking them personal questions as you're doing that. Hey, I guess like, so you have kids, like I'm noticing like this right here. Has that ever had an impact on you, like getting down the floor and playing with your kids? You know what I mean? Like you can weave it into their actual situation in ways that are relevant. That's where that giant gap comes from. When they realize they're not able to do the things that they want to do, it's more than them just paying you to fix like a tendon or whatever it might be. It's like, no, this is actually impacting all your life.
Yeah. Okay. So so it sounds like just incorporating more of these different pieces that you're talking about in your script, but into that session would actually be potentially just as effective in this particular piece.
Yeah, it sounds like you're running the right play. The 15 minutes to kind of pre-qualify them, understand the problem a little bit, and then you bring them in for an assessment. The only thing that, and again, I don't know the exact structure you're taking them through, but if you use something like what we went through today, it would allow for you to kind of weave in all those other pieces. And then when you present it back to them, you're not just talking about fixing PT, you're actually showing them what becomes possible when they fix this, right? Because fixing their body is a stepping stone to what they really want. You know what I mean? They really want to be able to go play with their kids and without pain. They want to get off the couch and wrestle on the floor, but right now they're in so much pain, they just say no to their kids and they hate who they feel like they are as a parent because they can't live the life they want, right? That's where the massive value comes in. And when you're the person that can connect those dots for them on how this issue solves that thing that they truly want, that's where high ticket's justified very quickly.
Yeah. Cool. And then you said you'd be able to share your scripts and stuff.
Yeah.
So I shared my full 72-minute training on how I present my offer to people. It's got the word for word and overview training. And I dropped that in the chat if you want to grab the link.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. And guys, if any
Kyle,
of this,
thank you so much.
yeah, of course. I know we got to go. I'll just say if any of this is helpful, or if you have any questions specific to what you sell, I have a free 15-minute audit, and from there can kind of break down everything you're doing. And then I have tons more trainings like that on different areas of sales that I can send over for free, just so you can get pointed in the right direction. If that helps any of you guys, don't hesitate. You can reach out either to me or through Morgan, and we can get connected. So thanks so much for everybody being here today. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you so much, Kyle. You rock, brother. Appreciate
Cheers.
you. See y'all.
Bye, guys.